Welcome back to Boo You Gore.
Where the stories are real and that's what makes them worse.
I'm Jade.
And I'm Anetta. And today's one is a bit close to home. This isn't some abandoned place in another country or something you'd only ever seen in a horror movie. This is right here in South Australia. That's right. I'm doing a local.
I feel like we've swapped roles.
Yeah.
Because your
I feel like I
last
did
one was
something with local.
Yeah, your last one was Australian and now you're doing a South Australian one and I
getting closer and closer to home.
Right, and I went the other way.
You went further.
We swapped.
But this one still can literally drive past it. People do every day, in fact.
Mhm.
Most of them have no idea what used to even happen there. Today we're talking about Z Ward inside Glenside Hospital, a place that's now known for ghost tours, shadow figures, and voices in empty rooms.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, we need some creepy music.
And for anyone who knows me, knows how much I love this place.
And how many times you've been there?
Oh my God, it's
Lost count.
ridiculous. I reckon it's been at least 8 times I've done the tour.
Nice.
And someone I know, definitely not me, has a brick from the ha-ha wall. It's absolutely not me. And it's not like at my house.
A whole brick. That's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah. Oh, I should have brought it with
so
me.
cool.
We could have had it sitting here while we did the
That would have been
episode.
pretty cool. That
I
would
have
have
to
been
take a photo formally of the Z Ward ha-ha wall.
Yeah. I actually learnt so much doing research on this one.
It's such a fascinating place. It's going to be so
Yeah.
hard for me to bite my tongue because I don't want to jump in on too many things and like spoil something that you've written. So I'm just going to be like, yes, oh, interesting.
You know what? Jump in. It'll make it more interesting. But yeah, like I didn't know about the ha-ha wall, and that's actually really cool because from the outside you can't tell that it's a prison essentially.
Before I leave today, because we always say we're going to do things and then we never do it. Before I leave today, we are picking a date and we are doing the fucking Z Ward ghost hunt.
Yes.
And you can see the ha-ha wall.
Okay.
Because you won't, like, obviously you've researched it.
Yeah.
But you won't believe how much it fucks with your head until you're there and you see it.
Because I've seen obviously the photos as I was doing research because I didn't like it had a description of it and my brain just couldn't compute what the hell it was trying to explain.
Yeah.
But then when I seen a photo, I was like, oh, this doesn't look too bad. But I'm sure it's much larger when
It's
you're there.
massive.
So the ghosts aren't actually the worst part of this story because unlike a lot of places we talk about, Z Ward doesn't have one big moment, no single massacre, no one night where everything went wrong. It's what happened slowly, over years and decades even, to hundreds of people who were locked away, misunderstood and mostly forgotten. But before we get into the ghost stories, before the footsteps, the voices, the things people say still linger there, we need to go back to the beginning, to a time when mental illness wasn't treated, it was hidden. Because Z Ward was never really meant to help people. It was built to contain them.
You know what?
Did that sound really creepy?
No, this sounds fucking amazing. I'm closing out of because I don't want to read along with you because this is written so well. I just want to sit here and listen.
I even have a little picture. The building is actually quite beautiful.
Yeah.
Like
it's
architecturally stunning.
And like I hope this doesn't wreck anything for you.
No, you're all
but
good.
like the building, I mean, we all know what I think about like old architecture. Even inside, like, you know, you're in the actual Z Ward part of it, you know you're in a prison. But it's so calming for me in there. It's so beautiful. My head is quiet in there, which probably says a lot more about me than it fucking should.
Well,
I feel like I'm at home.
Do you need padded walls?
And like when you walk around, before they were doing the ghost tours, they opened it up for a couple of days and people could just walk around there.
Mm-hmm.
And I took my son and my niece and we went for a walk around the building, and you could, like, as you ran your hand along the building, you could feel where people would have just done lap after lap after lap around the building, and they've done the same thing, ran their hand along it, and you could feel the wear in the grooves. Sorry,
no, that's amazing. That's amazing that you've put your fingers in those grooves.
Yeah, like just as you walk around, you can feel like all I could think when I was doing it was because there's multiple, like there's grooves at all different heights. Yeah, and as I was walking along and running my hand along the grooves, all I could think was, this person was probably about my height because my hand was so comfortable at the height that it was.
Without straining to
and I could just walk. We did the whole building and I ran my hand the entire way, and they must have done the same thing for years and years and years.
Like, I'm just trying to visualize how long that would have to have taken.
Yeah.
I do have a section where I describe where it's like footsteps and
Yeah.
someone's literally worn a path into the floor or
Yeah. Oh,
the
yeah.
fingertips.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
insane. Right. So the building itself, like I said, is quite visually, from the outside, it is a beautiful building. Very old, heritage looking building. So Glenside Hospital, as it was known from 1967, was previously known as the Public Colonial Lunatic Asylum of South Australia, Parkside Lunatic Asylum, and Parkside Mental Hospital, and was a complex of buildings used as a psychiatric hospital in Glenside, the suburb of South Australia, which is why it was called Glenside Hospital. Essentially, the asylum moved from location to location, and that I didn't realise, because some of the locations and places people just visit and it's in the botanical garden.
Yes. Yeah.
That's wild.
Right?
Yeah. So the Public Colonial Lunatic Asylum of South Australia was founded at the site in 1846 as the state's first purpose-run asylum to house residents deemed mentally ill. It was run more like a farm than a hospital and housed patients deemed too mentally unwell to be housed in the Adelaide jail. It operated until 1852, when the Adelaide Lunatic Asylum opened on the eastern side of the old Royal Adelaide Hospital, which now is not a hospital anymore either. On land now part of the Adelaide Botanic Garden, and the Glenside site was not used for such purposes for another 18 years. So that's crazy. Like, I thought Glenside was always just Glenside.
I guess they would have moved it out, because there would have been a time where the Botanic Gardens was the edge of the city, and then so they've obviously just moved it out
further and further from the city
to
just
make
further
sure
away
that
from
it was
people.
like way from the CBD.
Yeah, I think that's probably a huge factor as well. And just, you know what? It was always overpopulated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it reopened as Parkside Lunatic Asylum in 1870, housing the chronically mentally ill as well as people nearing the end of their lives, those suffering from undiagnosed illnesses, unmarried women with children, and prostitutes, which was a very mixed range of individuals. So it wasn't like, essentially, it's not like the women were there because they were mentally ill and insane. It was just such a huge range of...
They just didn't fit society's idea of normal.
Exactly, yeah. They didn't know where else to put them, really. Yeah. And this bit, the morgue for the asylum was a building in the Adelaide Botanic Garden.
Mm-hmm.
The morgue.
Yep.
Did not know that. The institution was renamed Parkside Mental Hospital in 1913 at the time of changes in the Mental Health Act 1913, when it was classified as both a receiving and a mental hospital. The large administration building became the receiving hospital, and the other buildings were used for long-term patients. Parkside was also referred to as the bin. That's lovely.
Even now, like, if I know someone's having a mental health stay, I can't say, like, they've been, what is it, sanctioned or whatever you're supposed to say. I'm like, they're in the loony bin.
I didn't know you were supposed to say anything. But...
You're not allowed to say loony bin, because you're not even allowed to say lunatic anymore.
Oh, the bin, bin.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together.
Yeah.
See, to me, in my head, I was like, because it was such a wide range of people, like you said, didn't fit the norm. It was like they were thrown in the bin because they had like nowhere else to go.
That's it.
But it makes more sense that it's a loony bin.
Just classed as being trash because they didn't fit
essentially
that right criteria.
It made sense in my head, okay? So Erindale Secure Ward for males, a lower security unit than the Z Ward, was built in 1877, and the Elms in 1880 to house female patients, although later used for elderly men and as a domestic training unit and for music therapy. So there's just different buildings and sort of different purposes trying to be mental health and mental help and things.
That's where my painting's from, is the Elms.
The Elms?
Yeah.
Nice. That's the one that everyone kept...
Yeah.
Residency of Parkside Lunatic Asylum peaked at 1,769 patients
Jesus Christ.
in 1958. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah. And it's a big building, but it's not 1,700 people big.
But even just to know that there's that many people that were placed there, or...
Yeah. When how low would our population have been then too?
Yeah.
So
what I mean, like such a large percentage of the population in South Australia. So the facility was renamed Glenside Hospital in 1967. From the 1970s onwards, with falling numbers and changing methods of treatment, the original site was progressively sold off, largely for housing, and some of the historic buildings refurbished for use by organisations such as SA Health, PIRSA, which is Primary Industries and Regions.
Yeah.
They're kind of an agency focused on driving economic growth in the state, that sort of thing. Just all sort of government type places, and Arts SA, which I thought was kind of random. So the Z Ward building itself was designed by Edward John Woods, who was an SA architect in chief from 1878 to 1886. The construction of Z Ward for criminal and refractory patients commenced in September 1884, with the contract being let to William Pett and Son builders. Work proceeded smoothly, completion being achieved in the second half of 1885. The polychromatic brickwork technique used by Wood in its design is the most elaborate, sophisticated example of this architectural style in South Australia. Additionally, Wood incorporated ventilation flues in each room and cell, as he had done in designing Old Parliament House, the Mortlock Library, and Martindale Hall, fresh air being considered an important element in curing mental illness. Lack of staffing and financial resources prevented the new facility for 45 inmates from being open until 1888, 3 years after its completion. But I love that it was only made for 45 inmates.
Yes, because there was a few more than that though.
Yeah. Only a minority of patients who were accommodated in Z Ward were governor's pleasure patients, those acquitted of their crime on the grounds of their insanity. The majority were people charged and convicted of a minor offence, but exhibiting sufficient signs of psychiatric instability that it was thought more beneficial for them to be placed in an asylum rather than the jail to serve their sentence. Another small group of patients were those who were considered to be dangerous to themselves or to others and were placed in there for the protection of the asylum's other inmates. Originally known as L Ward, the name was changed to Z Ward following the installation of telephones throughout the hospital in the 1900s. Mishearing the name when the telephone was answered led callers to mistake the L for hell.
Yep.
Adding a line to the L to form a Z saved in the cost of remarking the ward's laundry.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy that
Yeah.
like they just fuck
It
for
sounds
doing
like
all
hell.
the signs.
Yeah. Let's just put a little line and now it's a Z.
But I mean Hell Ward suits
Was so fitting.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
change it? Z Ward closed on the 13th December 1973, with the 10 occupants being transferred to the Yatala Security Hospital, only for that facility to in turn be closed in 1988 or 89 and replaced by James Nash House. So I feel like it wasn't open very long.
Yeah.
And I was going to say a long time ago either. But 80s is kind of a while.
Excuse me. 80s was 21 years ago. Especially like 83 was
Not saying who was born in 83.
21 years ago. Sure, it was 21 years ago.
Oh, shit. It's like it's not that long, but
Yeah.
when you start thinking about it.
When you think of the fact that it wasn't even operational for 100 years,
Yeah.
but then has now sat there empty for 50. Yeah, that's crazy.
How they say it's like haunted and stuff like that. I was going to say that energy. I don't know, like obviously it just shows how bad of a place it was
Yeah.
for it to have turned into this, have this like infamy
Yeah.
in a way. So there are no confirmed historical massacres or single dramatic events tied to Z Ward, but it has a reputation because of the intensity of suffering experienced there, which is sort of what we were just saying. Its prison-like design and reports from visitors of strange sounds, uneasy feelings, and presence type sensation. So, like many old asylums, the haunting reputation comes from what people endured than one specific tragedy. But I did try to do a bit of a dive, though, to see whether there were deaths at the asylum or any weird, unexplained type events. Real named patient stories from Z Ward are actually rare and fragmented, which in itself says a lot about how people there were treated and recorded. There's not a whole lot I could find. Like,
Yeah.
it was very hard.
Did you find any deaths?
I did. There are a few stories that I've got. I was going to say there are a few documented cases and details that give a glimpse into real lives inside. So the first one I've got is the mysterious death of Richard Blight in 1933. This is one of the only named cases directly linked to Z ward type confinement conditions. Richard John Jones, aka Richard Blight, after he changed his name at the age of 14, in 1909 stole a portmanteau, which is like a large travelling bag.
Yeah.
I think I said that right. From a girl named Alice Parry. Police spotted the accused with the bag and questioned him. At first, Blight said it had been given to him by the lady, but on further questioning, subsequently admitted, he said, it's in air quotes as well, "To tell you the truth, old man, I was hard up and I pinched it." He had done
Australia.
this. Yeah, good old Australia. That's why I had to put that in there like that. He had done this while out on parole after a string of other convictions, which had seen him put in the Parkside Lunatic Asylum as a patient.
Oh, wow.
He was now to return to Parkside and was housed in Z ward. By the time his demise came, he had already spent 26 of his 51 years, with only a short release period during that time. His demise was to become one of the greatest mysteries of Z ward. On October 22nd, 1933, an attendant unlocked cell 14 to find that one of the 7 inmates, Richard Blight, was now deceased. There was no blood, no signs of violence, so his body was taken by Professor Cleland for a post-mortem examination. It was then that Professor Cleland found that a sharp instrument had been driven through Richard's chest and into his heart. However, there was no evidence to show how or when it was inflicted. The wound in the chest had been so minute that he had first thought it to be a pimple and not the entry wound that it was. The weapon, thought to be a long needle, had entered the chest and wounded the aorta, which had started to seep blood, eventually killing Richard Blight. One such needle had disappeared a day or two earlier, so that's a bit sketchy. The mystery continued though. At first, it was questioned as to whether Richard Blight had done this to himself earlier in the day. They concluded, however, that it would have been difficult for anybody to withdraw the needle with no handle, never mind a man who had driven such a thing into his own chest.
Yeah.
There was also the question as to whether it had happened during the night in the room itself, or whether it had happened hours earlier with the act of lying down in the bed, opening the wound more, and so allowing a greater loss of blood. Blight's fellow inmates were of no help, as they confessed to have seen nothing, for they had been asleep. Snitches get stitches. Another attendant the afternoon before stated that he had given Richard his tea out in the grounds, and Richard Blight showed no signs of odd behaviour at that time. He had stripped and searched all the inmates, as usual, before they entered the cell and had found nothing on them. He continued to add that there had been no disagreements or hostility between them. The biggest mystery of all was where the murder weapon had gone. A search of the room and of the grounds of Z ward produced nothing. For days, they combed the of not just Z ward, but of the whole Parkside Lunatic Asylum, and nothing. Without a murder weapon, the case was at a dead end, and the mystery was to remain and continues to this day.
Yep.
So that's a bit weird. Yeah.
And that room, when you do the ghost tour, there's activity in that room.
The second thing I have is George Willoughby, and it was a 1888 inquiry case.
Yeah.
There's only limited surviving detail about George Willoughby, but what does exist is actually pretty revealing about how people like him were treated in the Parkside or Z ward system at Glenside Hospital. A man named George Willoughby was a pauper lunatic. That label was important. It meant he had no financial support, he was dependent on the state, and he was more likely to be institutionalised long term. His treatment became serious enough that it triggered a government inquiry in 1888. So obviously he was being treated badly enough that people were questioning it. Officials investigated allegations about how he was treated in the asylum, which tells us something important. Even back then, conditions were bad enough to raise public concern. Even though full records are scarce, the fact an inquiry happened tells us a few things. His treatment may have been excessive. Possibilities based on common practices at the time include overuse of restraint, harsh confinement, like cells similar to Z ward conditions, which is literally like a prison cell, neglect or poor supervision, that there were witnesses or complaints. For an inquiry to happen, someone had to have reported their concerns or observed something disturbing, potentially staff, visitors, or external officials. Or his case wasn't isolated. Inquiries usually don't happen for one minor issue. It likely reflected broader problems inside the asylum, like overcrowding, understaffing, harsh management of patients. George Willoughby's story story isn't detailed in a personal narrative way, but it's important because it shows patients weren't just quietly suffering, and some cases were bad enough to reach the public or government. Even in the 1880s, people recognized something was wrong. This is where it gets frustrating though, as there's no clear record of his diagnosis, no detailed account of what actually happened to him, and no confirmed outcome after the inquiry. So no one knows what even happened.
Yeah.
It just has records in the government listing that something was questioned.
Yeah.
So essentially his identity faded into the system, like many of the asylum patients. There's no more specific people, but most of the people in Z Ward weren't famous cases and weren't even necessarily violent. Records suggest many were classified as criminally insane, but in reality, most had only committed minor offences. Some may have simply been homeless, mentally unwell, or socially undesirable, like the prostitutes or women with children and no husband, meaning people could end up there for things that today would never justify that level of confinement. And then I've got the finger marks in the walls. This one isn't a single person, but it's one of the most haunting physical traces of real patients. Deep scratches and grooves were found in the walls and bricks caused by patients either walking the same paths repeatedly or dragging their fingers along the walls. This was likely done out of boredom, distress, or simply to feel something in extreme isolation. That's not just damage, that's time, like years of time.
Absolutely.
To try and I think of those, I think it's like steps in China somewhere or something, and pretty much the whole step's been worn down from stepping on it so much. I'm thinking, how literally every day in the same spot.
Until we go there and you feel how deep they are.
Yeah, but that's insane to have done it in the same spot. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. Even though we don't have dozens of detailed personal files, a pattern emerges. Lack of transparency, with many patients were poorly documented or forgotten. Questionable deaths, at least one unexplained death. Investigations into mistreatment, or enough concern to trigger government inquiries. And psychological deterioration, like the evidence in the wall scratches, shows long-term distress. There aren't many detailed patient stories because patients were often dehumanized. Records focused on control, not personal history. Many were poor or socially marginalized, and their voices were never preserved. Z Ward isn't famous for one shocking story. It's disturbing because so many stories were never told.
Yeah.
Like, what happened in there that you don't hear about?
Yeah.
And that got brushed under the rug because it was the 1880s. Or
that's it.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I've done the tour so many times is because the Privacy Act covers the patients for 75 years. If I try and do the tour at least once a year, because every year cases hit 75, so you get different stories.
That's cool.
When you do it. That's been really interesting, is like getting the new info every time you go.
That's cool that they do that it's not just the same spiel they have for every year.
They've literally spent hundreds of years going through files in a basement, and hundreds of years of hours. Oh my God. I was like, when they were telling me, I was like, can I volunteer? I would do it.
I volunteer as tribute.
Right. Because they when you do the tour, you hear about a couple of more deaths that happened.
Oh really?
And
that's sort of more. Wow. Yeah. Because I was going to say, I literally just could not find anything. There's not a whole lot, or that I could understand at least, because there's a lot of records, like governmental records of things, which I think was to do with the case and things like that, but not other things that I could really understand.
Or with that, like I've got a book at home that's got a breakdown of what they spent on every patient. It's like the economic thing from Z Ward. Where it's like what they spent to feed them, what they spent on medical. Like it was crazy. A lot of it doesn't make sense because it's in like pounds and shillings and stuff, and it doesn't correlate to me. But like, before I wreck anything, have you got any other stories of
I've got
deaths?
Ghost story, not deaths, not patient deaths.
So I won't tell them all, but one of the other stories that I've been told doing the tours was there was a guy in there, and he was apparently really big. He was like 6'5", big, like dopey, quiet, probably what we know now, probably autistic, but really, really big guy. And when he'd get angry, he'd be like superhuman angry. So I'd say definitely autistic. And he loved gardening. So he
Mhm.
would go out every day in the garden, and then something happened. I can't remember. It was like raining or it was a really hot day or something. So he wasn't allowed in the garden this one day, and he got really, really angry with the gardener because he wasn't allowed to go. So the next day they've gone out into the garden and he beat his head in with a shovel. Yeah.
Wow.
And then just sat there, like, not recognizing what he'd done wrong.
Wow.
But yeah,
So
it was
didn't find that in there.
yeah,
Dang.
it was something as simple as like he was.
But that shows
it
like
messed
the
with his
insanity.
routine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But apparently he was like, he never gave any of the guards any grief prior to that, never after that, like,
Yeah.
because they obviously worked out how to stop him from getting angry. Apparently model prisoner, except for this one day where he just snapped and caved in the gardener's head with a shovel.
But was it the gardener's fault that he wasn't allowed outside?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
No, it was probably just something that happened that day.
But that explains more of why maybe it's so haunted as well, or why there's so many, I guess, ghost stories and people hearing things.
And there was
like, if there's only one death, it's not going to be Richard walking around scaring everyone.
Well, there was another one where there was a guy who, I think it's the only documented suicide that they've found so far, and he was actually in there for attempting to commit suicide, and they had him chained. So the rooms are probably like the size of your bathroom, and the bed would be in the middle, a bedside table on one side, and a little like desk and stuff on the other side. So not much room at all. This guy was handcuffed. So his wrists were handcuffed to his waist.
Yeah.
And then his ankles were handcuffed. And then there were chains that came from the wall to his wrist and waist. So at night, he couldn't get up and hurt himself.
Yeah.
So they'd strip the patients off at night. They'd have to take all their clothes off, fold them and leave them at their door, and then go into their room. So he was completely chained up so he couldn't do anything. In the 45 minutes between when the guards would do their rounds, he got completely out of his chains and hung himself from his window with the chain.
What?
Yeah, didn't make a sound. And you'll see when we go, everything echoes. So if you're there at night and everyone was asleep and it was dead quiet and
So
someone
he
was
working
rattling
like
chains.
and meticulously to not make noise.
Yep.
Wow.
And he managed to get out and hang himself from the door frame, from the window.
Wow. Well, that, definitely explains the ghost stories.
Oh, yeah.
Zedward, which is open for ghost tours, is considered one of South Australia's most haunted locations, hosting intense, terrifying, and sometimes violent experiences and investigations, which explains that. Guests and investigators have reported hearing disembodied noises, seeing dark, shadowy figures, and experiencing intense emotional atmospheres. So I think I've read somewhere someone's literally gone into a room and they've just bawled their eyes out just didn't know why.
Yep.
That's
and
insane.
It's funny, like some nights you go there and I feel like I'm totally hijacking your thing.
No, this is good.
I fucking love Zedward. Like,
yeah.
I've had so much activity there. And yeah, I'll send you the photos that I've taken so you'll see. Sometimes you go in there and the minute you walk in the door, it's just calm.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, we're going to get fuck all tonight.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you go in and you're like, there's one room there I can't go into. Yeah, I don't care what you offer me. I'm not going in there. There's no fucking way. It's the downstairs bathroom.
Yeah.
There's another room where there's a really angry man in there. He's done lots of things to people. He's like popped up in front of people's faces. He's made them pass out. He's scratched them. Like, he's done lots of stuff. For some reason, he doesn't scare me. I always go in his room, try and stir him up. But this bathroom...
Of course, you fucking shit staring a ghost.
This bathroom, like...
You just won't.
No fucking way.
You just feel something before you get in there.
Yep.
Wow. So what have I got here? There aren't tons of officially documented hauntings, but there are consistent personal experiences from workers, visitors, and people who've been inside the building after it closed, per your example.
Yeah.
Personal experience. The pattern is what makes it eerie. Here are the most commonly reported ones. The footsteps that follow. People who've entered Zedward, especially when it was used for storage, have described hearing footsteps in corridors, the sound of someone walking just behind them, but when they stop, the sound stops too. That's really creepy.
Oh, yeah.
Some say it feels like they're being escorted or followed. The footsteps are often described as slow and uneven, like someone pacing. I've got doors that move on their own. Workers reported heavy doors swinging or slamming shut. Doors that were definitely left open being found closed. The opposite too, locked or shut doors slightly ajar. And these weren't light doors either. They were solid, heavy, like institutional doors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also been reports, which is probably one of the most common ones, areas of intense cold in otherwise normal temperature rooms. There's often concentrated in former cells or corners of hallways. People describe walking through and suddenly feeling like their air just drops. I don't know if I want to experience that. There's been reports of feeling like you're being watched. So this one comes up a lot, apparently. A strong sense of just like a presence in like beside you or in the same room as you, feeling like someone is standing just out of sight, and especially when they're alone. When someone's alone, they feel that a lot. Some have said it didn't feel empty, it felt occupied.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels cozy.
Yeah.
Like for a big stone and metal building, like it's
I love that you're
concrete,
using the word cozy.
Like it's so, like, it sounds so stupid, but like I don't know if it's because there's so much in there. I go in there and I like I don't like
You
I'm trying to
feel
not
a lot intensely.
Like, yeah. And like I've got that many fucking stories from that. It's insane. Like I don't, considering you're in, for me anyway, considering I'm standing in a lunatic asylum that 150,000% is haunted. No, maybe if there's shit that you can debunk, but so much happens that you're not debunking. Like it's full on. It's not. I've never had anything aggressive, but I've had, like, Oren and I got growled at. We were walking down a corridor and I said to him, because he's the same as me, and I said to him, like, it was his one and only time he's been there, I'm like, you lead this. If you don't want to go in a room, we won't go in. If you want to go in a room and I don't feel comfortable, I'll come in. You lead this, like trying to get him to trust his stuff a bit more.
Yeah.
And he went to walk down the hallway and he stopped and he's like, there's people in either side of the corridor. Like at the very end of the hallway, he's like, there's people standing on either side. And I was like, okay, I'm like, what do you want to do? And he's like, all right, we'll keep going forward. We've taken 2 more steps and we literally just got... And he just looked at me and fucking ran.
Oh, that's insane.
That's probably the scariest thing that we've had happen. A lot of the time it's like you'll be in the corridor and you feel someone sort of walk past you and just bump your shoulder. Had standing in the murder room where the guy got the needle through his chest, and we were all standing in a circle because they tell you stories in there because there's activity in there. I had my sister with me this time. Clear as day, you see this white apparition just walk straight past the door and it looked like a doctor in a white cloak. I sort of saw it and I was like, no one else would have seen that, because it's hard for me because I don't know what other people are seeing as well.
Yeah.
And I looked at my sister and she's just looking at me with a like stark white face and she's like, fuck right off. Did you see that?
Let's get out of here.
And I was like, yeah, I saw that.
That's
and then
cool.
There was a girl who was standing with her back to the door and she fucking jumped and she's like, did something just walk behind me? And we're like, yes.
That would suck.
Like
I would not have had my back to the door.
You could tell that was like a basically like
heavy,
a memory,
like a loop.
Yeah.
I think I'd talk about
loops. They didn't acknowledge the fact that there was 18 people standing in this room. Like they were just walking down the corridor. Yeah, like a residual energy.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah.
But yeah, it's,
sorry, my throat is hella ticklish.
It's definitely like I've never been there once and got nothing.
Really?
Yeah. The night I took my sister, we were standing outside and I got shoved in the back and I just looked at my sister and I was like, and I was wearing a big black puffer jacket and I still felt it.
Yeah.
And I just looked at my sister and I was like, you're fucking in for it tonight. And she's like, God damn it.
Oh, we need to do it. But
And that was the same night where I walked past one of the rooms and looked in the room as I walked past. Doors were open, looked in the room. There's nothing in there. And I didn't feel anything in there. I didn't see anything in there. But I jumped about 3 foot in the air and fucking squealed. And to this day, I don't know what made me jump and squeal. And I scared the shit out of everybody. You should have seen everybody fucking jump. And I was like, I'm sorry. They're like, what was it? I was like, nothing. There was nothing there. And I fucking shit myself.
Yeah.
I'll show you, not right now, but I want to show you the photo while we're recording because I want to get your reaction.
Okay. I've only been on the outside. We were in a van. There was like 6 of us in the back.
Yeah.
And we went there thinking we were going to jump the fence because there's like security and shit walking around.
Yeah.
We're all sitting there for ages just talking. And then we didn't end up actually getting out of the van and jumping the fence. But one of them in the front seat was just looking in the mirror and he's like, there's someone in the bushes. And we're all like, oh, fuck off. You're just shitting us. And we look and there's literally, it was a security guard, mind you. But we didn't know that. He was literally coming out of the bushes like fucking Homer, like in the thing, but he's just how slow to. So we fucking freak out. He starts the van and legs it, and we realise it's security as we're driving off.
It's probably the highlight of his life, fucking with people that are scared.
So we didn't even actually make it in there. Should I continue for a bit, or what do you... This is a photo of when you were there, is it?
Yeah. So this photo I took from the outside of the building before we were even let in. So we were the first people there. Us and the Haunted Horizons crew hadn't even rocked up yet. So there was no one in the building. It was completely empty. There was absolutely nobody in the building. I took this from the car park.
See, that looks like someone's been strangled.
Yep.
What the fuck?
But, like, you can see her teeth, you can see her hairdo, you can see fucking everything.
Is it a girl, though?
Yeah.
And, like, literally the hands, like, holding onto whoever's choking her.
Yep.
What the fuck?
So one of my friends who's a medium, I showed her that photo and she said, they're trying to convince you that it's scary in there. So don't come in because it's scary in there.
Yeah.
So that was them trying to scare people away from going in.
That actually gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
That is like such a vivid image.
Yeah.
We're going to put that on our Instagram because what the hell?
And like you can see, I mean, you'll see it when it's up there. You can see her mouth's open. You can see her teeth, her nose. You can see her eyes are closed.
Just even
like
the hands clear as day, as if she's being choked.
Yeah.
I mean, you can paint it and say it almost looks sexual.
Yeah, it absolutely looks, but like that was, so not zoomed in. That was like, when I took the photo, I couldn't see that. It wasn't until I got home and put it on my laptop, and as soon as I opened the picture, I was like, fuck right
That is
off.
insane.
And then, so that window is the end where the women used to be kept.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't find it, but I've also got a photo of my sister-in-law in the room that would have been taken in. Clear as day, black shadow next to her.
Mm.
But that could be her shadow. Like it could be the reflection of the photo or something.
Yeah.
But this is the one Beck took. Now, before I show you this picture, last time I did the tour, there was a story that they'd been able to tell now about an Indigenous man who had killed someone, but he did so on community land. The police took him anyway, even though they're not allowed to take him because that was a community issue. They took him. He got imprisoned because he couldn't defend himself because he couldn't speak English. So when it went to court and he was, he had no idea what the fuck was going on. This guy's lived on the land his whole life. And suddenly he's been brought down to Adelaide and is in a courtroom. So because he couldn't speak English, he was deemed insane and put in the lunatic asylum. Despite the fact he's speaking the language of the fucking land that we're sitting on, he was deemed insane and put in the asylum. When he died, his body was sent to Cambridge University in England to be studied so that they could work out why these people were so different to us.
They're not allowed to do that.
Not now.
Oh.
75 years they had his body. He was eventually found in a storage cupboard and 90, I think it was like 95% or something of his body was found and was returned to his mob to be laid to rest on his land. I don't believe they ever got his head back, and I think there was something else missing. So a good percentage of him is now home, is on his land. Someone who never should have been imprisoned anyway because he was on community land and it was tribal law.
Yeah.
He had murdered someone because they had murdered one of his family.
Yeah.
That is how it goes. She was telling us this story and this was only the last time I went, she told the story. So that had only just hit
the 75
years. Beck took this photo. I don't even think she was on a ghost tour. I think it was just when it was open for the day when she went around. Is that not an Indigenous man in tribal face paint?
That's really scary.
Right? That is absolutely. And when we spoke to the people at Z Ward about this photo when she first got it, they said, no, there's no record of Indigenous prisoners because there wouldn't have been then because the case wasn't old enough for them to be able to investigate it. But when she showed us a photo of him, when we're at the tour, Alison showed us a photo and I was like, hey, and showed her this and everyone there was like,
because that's like him. The lips painted, which is what they,
Yep.
Wow.
So we may share this one as well, but if we share it, you've got to put a disclaimer that it's going to show the face of a Indigenous.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just 2 of the many. I feel like I've totally hijacked your case. And
No,
I'm so
this
sorry.
is cool, because I was going to say I didn't get many people tell me their stories.
Yeah.
So I was going to say one other thing that people report often is faint whispering, muffled voices with no clear words, occasional shouting or crying-like sounds. And the unsettling part is they often seem to come from empty rooms. Now, one of our listeners actually described an experience of hearing voices. Her partner took her there on one of the... Leah?
Yep.
Yeah. Her partner took her there on one of the haunted tours, and something spoke to her, but no one else could hear it.
Yep.
She was made to stand in a room with another girl in separate corners, and she got really hot, and as she was about to walk out, she heard this man say, "Move, harlot," really angrily into her ear, and she could feel his breath.
Wow.
I was like, wow, that's insane.
That's amazing.
I was like, can I please read this one in an episode?
That's so good.
So that was a huge experience.
Wow. I can't believe Leah and I have never had that conversation. Alison herself, who runs the Haunted Horizons tour, he said she's been all around the world doing tours. Edward is one of the very few places where she said she's had an absolutely 100% can't debunk it proof of the paranormal.
Wow.
She said she went to walk out of the bathroom and this thing just appeared in front of her, and she said it just got bigger and bigger and would have ended up standing about 7 foot tall, and she said it was the blackest black you've ever seen, and it felt like just staring into the abyss, and she said it just come up in front of her and was just face to face with her.
How did she not run off screaming? I've seen way too many horror movies. I'd be like, what the fuck?
Well, when the Pinery fire came through, because it was going through her property, she had the keys to Zedward, so she was like, well, fuck it, where am I going to go? So she jumped in the car, gets to Zedward, and she said she'd set up her sleeping bag and everything, and got in her sleeping bag, put her radio on, and then she was just like, nah.
What was I thinking? It might be free. Wow. So a small number of reports as well, but very creepy, seeing movement in peripheral vision, what you've experienced, dark shapes passing doorways, and figures that disappear when looked at directly. And then there's the repetitive energy, like the residual haunting, which is what you would have seen. So some experiences don't feel interactive as such, but more like they're on a loop. Seeing sounds of pacing in the same area, repeating noises at similar times, or energy that feels like it's replaying past behavior. This lines up with the idea of patients walking confined spaces and repeating movements in isolation.
Yeah.
So it's just literally what they would have done
their
entire time that they were there.
Energy on loop, yeah.
Yeah.
It's 100% what I think that doctor was.
Yeah.
They
you
were
just can't break that.
Rounds. Yeah.
You've been doing it for so long, you just can't break that. Which, shit.
Yeah.
Fuck being at work on loop. Sorry.
That'd be my luck. I'd be stuck forever just tattooing an infinity symbol.
A dead cat.
That's my hair.
That's your purgatory. Oh, shit.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, shit, it's grown. So that's Zedward. Not a single dramatic explosion of horror, not one headline-making tragedy, but hundreds of lives slowly constrained, ordered only in fragments and lost in history. That sounded very formal.
Yeah.
Shit.
There's like rumour too that Zedward was where, I don't know if it's ever been found, like to be proven, but there was rumour that Zedward was where they first started doing autopsies in South Australia, because if you were just handed over and you were property of the state, they could do what they wanted.
You know what wouldn't surprise me?
Yeah.
Having a morgue next door.
That's it. And like apparently, like, I don't know if there's any truth to this at all, but apparently there were like stories of them, if someone was dying, they pretty much would start doing the testing and the autopsies before they'd actually passed.
Is that where they did like lobotomies and shit maybe?
Yeah. Yep.
Dang.
Yeah.
And all the treatments they would have had, all the like electro therapy, shock therapy, or whatever they call it. Yeah.
But when you talk to anyone official, they're like, oh, no, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
that's illegal.
They did it everywhere. And if they're going to do it anywhere, it's going to be in the asylum for the criminally insane.
Yeah, 100%. When no one's really claiming them.
That's it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Zedward.
I feel so bad. I feel like I totally hijacked it.
No, that's good. Like, you had a lot of input there, so that's good. If you want to keep up with our latest episode releases, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, which we're just Boo You Gore podcast. Yeah.
And if you're enjoying the chills, hit that like button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Every follow and share helps us keep the stories coming.
We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.